everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Stephanie Vadimnik and I am a Team Beachbody coach. I have been a coach for about a year and a half now, since March 2015, and I can say that this opportunity has truly changed my life and the direction that my life is going in. So today I wanted to share with you a little bit more about my story. I've shared bits and pieces of my story, and I know a lot of people know parts of it, but I've never sat down and actually shared my entire story, and I feel like it's probably a good time to do that. I've had nothing but great support from my family, friends, followers, anybody on my business page, and I really appreciate that. And I've had a lot of people and a lot of conversations and a lot of people asking more about what I've been through. And for anyone that knows me, you know that I have a few passions, and one of my passions is helping people reach their health and fitness goals and being the best version of themselves that they can be. Another one of my passions is helping women to build businesses and build both freedom of time and financial freedom, and really be their own boss and build the life that you want for you and your family. And my third passion is spreading awareness of miscarriage and infant loss because of what my husband and I have been through over the past 3 years. So that's really very important to me, and it's a really big part of who I am as a coach. And I feel like if sharing my story can help even one person, then it's going to be worth it. So all I really ask is to keep an open mind. If you're not interested in hearing about my story and my losses, then I will not be offended if you do not watch this video. And if you do, then I thank you so much for your support and for being there. This is really difficult for me to share. Some of this stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you is stuff that really only close family and friends know about my journey. So I'm putting myself out there and becoming very vulnerable by sharing with you, but I really want you to get to know me and who I am as a person, and so how I can help you if you've ever been through anything like I have been. So I am a teacher, but I am not teaching right now. I'm actually on a leave, and I have been for the past 2 years, but I do teach elementary school. I'm usually grades 1 to 4. So I will say I'm very grateful that I've been able to take some time off of teaching while going through everything that we've gone through. And in the meantime, I am building my business and helping people from home, and it's really been an amazing opportunity. So today I want to share with you how Beachbody came into my life, how it's changed my life, what I love about it, but also throughout that I want to share my journey and my losses of my children with you as well, because that really, it's all kind of one piece and it all goes together. I can't really talk about one without the other. And like I said, this is October, which is Miscarriage and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and so it's super important to me to share with you my story. So here we go. My story kind of begins back in February 2nd, actually, 2013, when my husband Dave and I got married. It was a winter day. It was very miserable and cold out, but it was still an amazing day. We wanted to start a family right away, and we were fortunate enough that I actually got pregnant the first month that we did try. So that was super exciting for us, and we were really ready and looking forward to the future, and very surprised that it happened so fast. I haven't always had the best luck with things health-wise, so it was kind of a shock. I thought that there would have to be some problems, and at the beginning there wasn't. So at the end of the school year, I was teaching that year, grade 2-3 split, and at the end of that school year we actually had a trip booked to Hawaii, and we went to Hawaii. I was about 10 weeks pregnant, and it's beautiful there, by the way. Side note, I can't wait to go back. If you've ever been to Hawaii, you know what I'm talking about. While we were there, we went to the mall, we went shopping, and there's a day that I will remember that completely changed my life. And that was the day that we found out that something was wrong I was actually shopping for maternity clothes at Old Navy. I remember it clearly. There's just certain days through my journey and the point of where we're at now that I remember like I was there right now. Like I could close my eyes and remember everything about it. I had to pee, like every pregnant person always has to do, is pee. And I was spotting very lightly. And now I know this can be normal in pregnancy, but it was very scary to me. And being that we were in Hawaii and not in Canada, it was also very, very scary. Unfortunately, over the next 2 days, the light spotting turned into clots, and my doctor wanted me to go to emergency. So we found a women and children's hospital that was close by and went there. We had amazing service. They were really great to us, so we can't complain about that. Unfortunately, they were not able to find our baby's heartbeat. And we were taken to the ultrasound room, and when they did the ultrasound, our baby was measuring only 6 weeks and 1 day with no heartbeat, and I was actually 11 weeks pregnant. So I had had a missed miscarriage, and a missed miscarriage, basically, if you are not sure, is when your body doesn't realize that you're no longer pregnant and that the baby doesn't have a heartbeat, and your body keeps going on as though you're pregnant and doesn't tell you. That was really hard. It was really hard for me to know that my body, could do that to me, and I was frustrated and I was angry. Being that we were in Hawaii, they said it wasn't safe for us to travel home because we were going home, I think 3 days later. So our option was to do a D&C and have surgery while I was there. And luckily that all went very smoothly, as smoothly as it could go, and we were just left with the emotional healing side of things. I just want to pause here for a minute and say, anybody that's watching this video, if you have ever had a miscarriage, an early miscarriage, I completely understand what that's like, what kind of pain that is. That baby is a part of your family and so loved and wanted from the moment you find out you were pregnant. And I know a lot of people don't understand that if they haven't had a loss, but I do. So, I'm always here, and I always have an open door policy. I'm always here to listen, and I encourage people to talk about their losses because I think that it's really important, and I think that our babies are all really important. So, to get back on track, from that point, it took 7 months to get pregnant a second time, and that was really quite frustrating to me as well because it happened the first time that we tried before, and so I wasn't sure what was going on, was something wrong with my body? So anyone who's tried to conceive for an extended period of time knows that it pretty much consumes you every second of every day. And the whole process is very exhausting and very emotionally draining. So 7 months later, I did become pregnant again, and we were cautiously optimistic. We were excited, but we were also very scared and worried, and we didn't really know what to expect, but we were hoping for the best. I had an ultrasound at 7 weeks, and for the very first time we saw our baby's heartbeat on the screen, and that, as many of you would know, is just an amazing moment to see that, especially when with our first baby, baby V, we never heard or saw that baby's heartbeat. So to us, this was a really big stepping stone. Okay, we made it past the first hurdle. And things were good. I finally got to breathe and think, okay, maybe this is going to happen. Maybe I'll be bringing my baby home, in 8 more months. And we went on to have our 12-week ultrasound, and that moment was also very, very special. We saw a baby on the screen. He looked perfect to us. Obviously at that point we didn't know if he was a boy or a girl, but for this video I will just refer to him as he. And The ultrasound went great as far as we knew. Obviously, they can't really tell you much, so we left that ultrasound thinking everything was fine. We got to see our baby on the screen. He looked perfect to us. Unfortunately, all of that changed a week later at our follow-up appointment from the ultrasound. We walked into the office and we were waiting, and when my OBGYN came in, he pulled up the report, and I could just tell by the way he was not talking that something wasn't right. And he said to us, "It doesn't look good." And at that moment, we didn't even know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't look good. Like, we saw our baby on the screen. Our baby was fine. He had a heartbeat because at that point, that's all we needed to see was the heartbeat. And when he read the report, he said that our baby had an increased nuchal fold. So that's the fluid behind the neck. They were not able to find the nasal bone. His limbs were all quite short for the gestation that he was. And his kidneys were not good. They had multiple cysts, and they looked like they were starting to shut down. So that moment was also very life-changing for us. Now, we were not only dealing with an early loss, but we were dealing with something much bigger. And we had no choice but to go home and wait for the appointment with the maternal fetal medicine specialist, which was not for another 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, we Googled and we talked and we cried and we tried to make sense of things, and we tried to get an answer, and we tried to prepare ourselves for what was to come. But obviously, we think we can prepare ourselves sometimes, but really all we can do is, tell ourselves that, because you're never truly prepared for what life has to throw at you sometimes. That 2 weeks was just awful. I remember it was report card time. I was still teaching, knowing how sick my baby was. No one knew I was pregnant except a very few people. And the couple days before we finally had our appointment, I had 2 nights of parent-teacher interviews, and focusing on that and trying to be present was very, very difficult in the circumstance we were in. So when it was finally time for our appointment, we went and had the ultrasound, and everything was significantly worse. Our baby's kidneys had completely shut down. His limbs had not grown at all since the last ultrasound. We found out he had a very, very narrow chest, and that he possibly had an extra finger on each hand. We found out that his lungs would not develop, that I had no fluid because his kidneys had shut down. After that ultrasound, they put us in a room, and the doctor came in, and she sat down, and this is, probably the number one hardest moment of my life. She told us that our baby was incompatible with life and that he had a 0% chance of survival. That with no kidney function and a narrow chest, it was impossible for his lungs to develop. And if we were to continue the pregnancy and he got to a point where he could be delivered at 25, 30 weeks or later, that if he did get to that point and he was born alive, that he would not be able to take a breath, and that he would only suffer. There was a 0% chance of survival. And that's a moment you can't prepare yourself for. And I know that some of you watching this will struggle to understand. And this is why I've struggled so much to share this with people. Because this is a moment in my life that I never could have even imagined, or imagined how I would deal with it, or how my husband and I would deal with it. It's not something you ever picture happening. And one thing I can tell you right now is that you can absolutely not know what you would do until you're in that position, until there is a doctor sitting across from you telling you that no matter what you do, your baby is going to die. And if you continue your pregnancy, he will suffer. Or you can take that pain from him. And so we chose to do that. The hardest decision of our lives, and something I live with every day and will continue to live with. I know that the decision and choice that we made was the right one, but that doesn't change the guilt and the pain that we feel from making that choice. And we knew we had to take that pain away from him. There wasn't even a 1% chance that he could survive. It was 0% chance he could not survive. No matter what we did, he was going to die. And continuing not only would have made him suffer, but also would have been higher risk for me, obviously, the further we get in pregnancy. So the next morning, we went back to the hospital. And I had an amnio done because we had decided that being induced and delivering was going to be the best option at that point, because we needed to get an answer. We needed to know what we were dealing with. Our doctor said she suspected trisomy 13, which is incompatible with life as well. And if it wasn't that it was a fatal form of skeletal dysplasia, which is a type of dwarfism that is genetic. And so we had the amnio done so that we could test the chromosomes and see what we were dealing with. And we also knew that by delivering him, we could get x-rays and blood samples and tissue samples. And everything that we would need to hopefully get an answer and know what we were dealing with and if it was likely to reoccur. Obviously, having no amniotic fluid, an amnio is very difficult, and after 2 tries, she could not get any fluid. So she asked if she could go through our baby's bladder. So anyone that's watching who's had an amnio, you may or may not have experienced this. It was very difficult for me, but we knew that it was the only way, that it was our best chance at getting an answer. We needed that fluid, and we needed to know. We needed an answer for our baby. So after that, I was taken to a room, and I was induced with Cytotec. I'm not going to get into details about this. I know that many of you watching may be people that I've connected with in the past who have had losses, or who have been faced with the impossible choice of having a medical termination. And I will share more about that. I'm currently working on typing out my story for people who are more interested in that aspect of things. Because like I said, my passion now is to really just educate people and to support people and to spread awareness that this happens to people, and it's horrible, and it's okay to talk about it, because I can tell you, I have never felt so alone as I did then. I had my husband, and I had my parents, and I had a few friends that knew, but nobody really knows. And This is kind of getting sidetracked, but I did create a forum for people who have had to make this choice, and unfortunately now we are up to about 400 women in the group, and it breaks my heart every time somebody joins our group. And I know from creating that group and founding that group that there is a need for people to know that this happens, and for people who have to go through it, parents that have to go through it, to know that you're not alone. And that is why I'm doing this video. If you have been in this situation, you are not alone. You feel like you are, but you're not. Reach out to people, talk to people. There are people to support you, I promise. So backtracking, like I said, I won't get into too much detail about all of that, but 10 hours later, at 10:37, I delivered my son, Liam. Sorry, our son, Liam. A very difficult moment, but we are very grateful that we were able to spend time with him, to see him. He was just under 16 weeks, so he was very tiny. He was only 2.5 ounces. He was born sleeping, and I don't even know how to explain what that's like. All I can say is that I hope that you never have to go through it. And if you have, I am so sorry. All right, so moving on from that, we were sent home to wait for the amnio results and to recover. Physically, obviously, the recovery was a lot easier than it was emotionally and mentally for us. And when the amnio results came back, it came back that the chromosomes were all normal. And that was very devastating. I was struck with guilt and doubt and wondering what we did, if we made the right choice. But ultimately, we knew that no matter what choice we had made, he could not survive. So he was so tiny, they were not able to get a very good sample, DNA sample from him, and not enough to actually do any genetic testing. So at that point, we were told, since it was not trisomy 13, that what we were dealing with was something genetic, and it was autosomal recessive, which would give us a 25% chance of each pregnancy being affected. That was their best guess, an educated guess, since we couldn't get any more answers. And so really our only option was to give up on starting our family, or to try again and take that chance, knowing that we had a 75% chance of having a healthy baby. So 6 months later, I did get pregnant again. It took 6 months again. And obviously this pregnancy was even more difficult than Liam's, because now we were dealing with something genetic, and we knew that we wouldn't know what we were dealing with until at least 12 weeks on the ultrasound. So at 12 weeks, I had the ultrasound, and it looked pretty good. The baby's kidneys were fine. And the nuchal fold was fine, and we could see a nasal bone. So those were all really good things. However, the baby's limbs were measuring on the lower side of normal. So basically at that point, at 12 weeks, she had told us there was about a 50% chance of baby being healthy and 50% chance of baby being affected. Unfortunately, all we could do was wait. It was too early to do an amnio. That can't be done until 16 weeks. And an amnio in our case was not going to help, because the chromosomes were normal and we did not know what gene we were dealing with. So 2 weeks later, I had a repeat ultrasound. And she looked at us and she told us it was happening again. it went from being an okay ultrasound and having that little bit of hope to finding out that he was actually just as sick or sicker than Liam. And that moment was just like, how can this happen again to us? Like, how can we go through this again? Like, just surreal, a moment that you don't even know. Like, you can't even function, you can't think, you don't even know what's going on. And his kidneys had shut down, same, and pretty much everything that was wrong with Liam was also wrong with Nate. We knew we were back to the same position as before, where we could continue the pregnancy or choose to be induced and medically terminate, because he had a 0% chance of survival as well. But this time we knew that we needed to get an answer. We could not keep doing this and going through this. And so we were encouraged to continue carrying him until around the 20-week mark. And unfortunately, the geneticist, there's only one near where we are. He was on holidays, and so we had to wait until 22 weeks. So we did, and for 8 weeks, we had to continue on knowing what was coming and knowing that he wasn't going to survive no matter what we did. They actually were they felt that he may not make it until 22 weeks, but it was really important that he did, because we needed to get all the samples that we could. So that 8 weeks was something that I can't even explain, that we went through. And at 22 weeks, I was induced, and I delivered our son, Nate. Nate was just under a pound, and he was perfect. He was so cute, and it was traumatizing and it was horrible, but that time we spent with him is time that I will cherish forever and ever. And because he was bigger, we were able to get a lot of DNA from him. We were able to get x-rays. We were able to be in conjunction with a clinical study in California for skeletal dysplasias, and they needed some tissue samples and things like that as well. We knew we needed to do whatever we had to do to get an answer and to find out what we were dealing with for our boys. And the hardest moment of that was giving him back, having to give him back to the nurse. At the end of our time with him, we spent all day with him, and when we had to give him back, it was horrible. So if you are watching and you've been in this situation, I completely understand what that moment is like, and I'm so sorry that you have had to be in that situation. A few months later was another very difficult time in life for us. My grandpa, who I was extremely close to, he fell and hit his head, and he ended up passing away in the same hospital on the same floor that Liam was born, 1 year to the day, on April 30th. Liam was born on April 30th, 2014, and my grandpa passed away 1 year later in the same floor, only a few hours earlier. And that was very hard. It was, I'm not a religious person, and I don't believe in everything happening for a reason. I know lots of people do, but with what I've been through, I can't possibly believe that there is a reason that we've had to go through this so many times. So, but I feel happy that that they're together. So, sorry, that was just kind of sidetracking. on that day, actually the day before, I got a phone call from the genetic counselor, and we finally got some good news that they were able to work with the lab in the States, and they were able to identify the gene that our babies were affected with, and it is called short rib polydactyly type 3. There are less than 200 recorded cases in the world. It is 100% fatal. Extremely rare, and the way it works is that I have a mutation on a gene and Dave has a mutation on the gene, on the same gene. They're different mutations, but they are on the same gene. So with each pregnancy, we each have one good gene and one gene that's affected. So our babies can either get both of our good genes and be healthy, can get my bad and Dave's good, and the baby would be a carrier like Dave or I, but not be affected, or vice versa, or the baby could get both of our bad genes, which is what happened to both Liam and Nate. So 25% chance that the baby would be affected. So getting an answer and finding the gene was really important, because that opened up some doors for us to consider going forward. I'm just going to stop with that part of it for a moment and switch back to after I had Nate. It was very difficult. I was 22 weeks pregnant when I had him, so I had gained a little bit of weight, and I was very unhappy. We were struggling mentally and emotionally with everything, and we just decided we needed to do something positive for us. And that is when I found and learned about the 21-day fix. And so Dave and I decided that we needed something positive to focus on, and I had ordered the 21-day fix and he ordered the 21-day fix extreme, and we both got Shakeology. And as soon as I got it, I called and I canceled my Shakeology right away, because there was no way I was paying that much money every month for both of us to be on Shakeology. I was like, never in a million years. And we were just about to start the 21-day fix, and I was researching recipes, and I came across my coach online, and she had a video about the business opportunity, and I watched it and I realized, hey, you know what? I think I can do that. I think, I'm a teacher. I'm used to helping people. That's part of my passion. I think I can do that. And so I learned more about it, and I was super excited, mostly because I was struggling with anxiety. I was struggling emotionally. So much with everything going on. I just needed something positive to focus on, and I thought if I could just focus on getting healthy with Dave, and if I could focus on have a focus and maybe help a few other people while I was doing it, then that would really help me to get out of, it wasn't going to change things. It was not going to change what happened with the boys, and it was not going to change what we'd been through, but it was going to give me something to do while I wasn't teaching, something positive to focus on, and to really work on my mindset and control what I can control and what I could control at the time. So I dove right in with coaching, and I have not looked back since. And I'm telling you this because I thought there was no way I had it in me, to even help anyone else. I couldn't even help myself. But when I learned about the business and I started to see results and do the programs and drink my Shakeology, I will add in that only after a week of drinking our Shakeology, I called and reordered. I went back on the auto ship for both Dave and I, because I realized that it was worth the investment and it was important to me. And when I kind of did price comparisons, I realized that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. So I dove in with coaching, and I am so happy that I did. We have an amazing team, and I couldn't ask for a better team to be a part of. And it has given me so much more positive to focus on than just continuing down the road that I was on. So if you're looking for a positive change and that accountability, I can promise you that you won't regret it. If if you join a great team, then with mentorship, and you're trained by coaches that are passionate about what they do, then it can truly change your life. So that is how I started with Beachbody. It was after I had Nate. And I really started focusing on the business. And like I said, I'm still off of teaching at that point in time. And we had a decision to make. We knew the gene, so that had given us a new option now of doing IVF with PGD. And PGD is pre-genetic testing, basically, where they test the embryos. And it's about twice the cost of regular IVF. And at that point, we had already decided we were going to try one more time on our own before, because we were actually prepared to not get an answer. And we were told there was a very good chance they wouldn't be able to find the gene because it was something so rare that we were dealing with. So we really did get lucky that the gene was found. But in the meantime, we weighed our pros and our odds, and we still knew we had a 75% chance of having a healthy baby, and we were just not ready to give up. But we didn't quite feel ready to go down the IVF route either. It took me 12 months to get pregnant, and that was hard. That was so hard. Secondary infertility for no reason. So guys, I understand. I know what it's like to have an early miscarriage. I know what it's like to have second trimester losses and deliveries. I know what it's like for medical terminations and to have that guilt and that pain that you carry with you. And I know what it's like to have secondary infertility. I've literally been through it all, and none of it is easy, but just know you're not alone. And there are lots of people out there to support you, and I would be glad to be there for you if you feel like you're alone. So I did get pregnant. We were just starting to look into IVF at that point because it was taking so long, and after 1 year I got pregnant. And at that point we were terrified because it had happened twice, possibly 3 times. With baby V, we don't know if that baby was affected or not because it was earlier, but with our record, we kind of just assumed that baby probably was affected as well with the gene. So let's just say we were 3 for 3, and that 75% chance of having a healthy baby didn't really seem true, and we struggled with that. But we took our chances, and unfortunately, it was not the right chance to take. 12 weeks later at my ultrasound, we actually went to Edmonton to have a CVS, which is actually like an early ultrasound that is done so that they could send the sample away to the lab in the States, and we could see if the baby was affected with the gene, now that we finally knew what gene we were dealing with. But at that 12-week ultrasound, it was already quite obvious that our baby was affected again. And that just seemed impossible. We knew that it was possible, but we really chose to focus on that 75% chance and just thought, can it really just keep happening? And it did. So we waited for the amnio result, or the CVS results to come back, because we wanted to be 100% sure that she was affected. And it came back that she did have 2 copies of the gene and she was affected. And we were back there again. A 0% chance of survival and saying goodbye. And this time it was our little girl, Bria. So I was induced again at 16 weeks and delivered Bria after 20, almost like after 20 hours of labor. It was a very different labor, and there were some complications at the end. My placenta did not come out in one piece, and they weren't too concerned. They thought they got it all. We spent the day with her, and we loved her, and then we had to give her back. Just like the boys, it was one of the 3 hardest moments of my life, was giving them back. I have them all here with me, and their urns, Liam and Nate and Bria. And this bear was made out of Liam's blanket was the green one, and Nate's blanket that we had with him was the blue one, and I still have Bria's, and we're going to get hers made into a bear as well. So 3 times it happened in a row, and 3 times we had to make that decision to end the pregnancy, because we could not bear to see our baby suffer, and that was our option. In my mind, it would have been more selfish to continue, because that would have been for me. It would not have benefited them at all. And I know that there's going to be people watching this who do not agree with our decision, and I just want to say, honestly, until you've been there, until that doctor is telling you what you're dealing with, you don't know what you would do. Our babies were wanted so much, and you don't know what you would do until you're in that position. So please don't judge people. And that's why I was so terrified to share this. I know that I will be judged by some people. I know I will probably get some negative comments and people saying mean things, but I think I can handle it. I hope I don't have to, but I know that there are people who have strong opinions otherwise. But you know what? These were our babies, and we did what we felt was best for them. And I am sharing because I am not the only person who has been in this position. There are many people, thank goodness, that have to be in this position, but I have a lot of ladies that I connect with often who have been through this. And I'm sharing this for them because I don't want to hide it and feel like we did something wrong, because we did not do anything wrong. We did what we needed to do, and we protected our babies the best that we could. So that's the main reason for me doing this video, is to spread awareness and let people know that if you're going through this, you're not alone. And I'm here for you, and I'm sure there's other people that are here for you too. Unfortunately, after I had Bria, I had a lot of complications. I had a major infection. They thought I had a pulmonary embolism. I was taken 2 hours by ambulance for a CT scan. Luckily, I did not have one, and the infection, after 5 days in the hospital, or 6, we got rid of it, but I still was having issues. I had a D&C for retained placenta. 2 weeks later, the infection started coming back, and they realized there was still more retained tissue. So I had a second D&C. Still, my temperature was spiking, and that's when they realized that I had something called placenta increta. There are 3 types. There's placenta accreta, increta, and procreta. And I had the middle one. And after having an MRI, they were able to determine that Bria, when I was pregnant with Bria, the placenta attached, and it grew through the uterine wall and attached to the muscle. And it can be extremely dangerous. In a full-term pregnancy, about 7% of people actually die from it. So had I continued the pregnancy with Bria, there's a good chance that if we had not known about the accreta, that I would have ended up with a hysterectomy in order to save my life. So I try to remember that when I feel the guilt about the choices that we've had to make. And placenta increta basically gives you a really high chance of hemorrhaging. And so after more time in the hospital, it was too risky to do surgery because I couldn't take the chance of needing a hysterectomy and losing my uterus, because we have no children, and we're still not ready to give up on that dream either. So I was given 4 methotrexate shots. Methotrexate is chemotherapy, and I was given 1 shot every week for 4 weeks, and it's supposed to kill off any active growing cells. And so I had about a 7-centimeter piece of placenta that was still attached to my uterine wall. And in order to save my uterus, we went that route. I had very few side effects. I was very lucky. And although it took a long time, that I just had Bria May 17th, and found out I had the increta about the middle of June, after about a month. And then just now in October, my uterus is finally actually back to normal. No signs of the accreta at all. So I really wanted to share that part as well, because I have a lot of people that I connect with daily as well, and a really large group of women who have had placenta accreta, increta, or percreta, who have lost their uteruses, who have lost babies from it that were healthy. And it's also something that I think that we need to talk about and spread awareness about. So I do want to talk about that a little bit as well, and let you know that there's a really great support group on Facebook for that as well. If you have ever had any of the accretas, then you're not alone in that either. And so here we are, October 2016, and we have had 1 early miscarriage or missed miscarriage with baby V. And I delivered Liam at 16 weeks, Nate at 22 weeks, and Bria at 16 weeks. All 3 were affected with short rib polydactyly syndrome type 3. As I said before, it's extremely rare, very few cases, none that we've even heard of being in Canada. It's no doctor we've talked to has dealt with it or seen it. It's extremely rare. We're very lucky to have found the gene that causes it. So what I want to share with you now is our next step. Obviously, that 75% chance of having a healthy baby is not working out for us at all. So we have decided to go ahead with IVF and PGD, which if you missed it from before, that is genetic testing of the embryos. And I'm actually starting the medication in 2 days on Saturday for the nose spray. And we're very hopeful that this will be how we get our healthy baby, because we have been through a lot. We've had a lot of pain, a lot of guilt, a lot of doubt, a lot of emotion. I have good days and I have bad days. I know that Facebook makes it seem like everything's always wonderful, but unfortunately, like anybody in any type of situation, we all have tough days. And being that we've been through this so much, there's a lot of due dates and a lot of birthdays that trigger a lot of bad days for me as well. But I know that's okay, because they're a part of me and they're a part of our lives, and I will always talk about them. I will always share about them. I will always continue to spread awareness about all of the things that I've been through, because if I can help even one person, then it's worth it to me. And I know I've already made some amazing friends from sharing my story and what I've been through, and they have made my life a lot better. And becoming a coach and building my own business has literally changed my outlook on life. It has given me something to get up for every single day. It has given me the satisfaction and It warms my heart so much to see ladies working towards their goals, reaching their goals, building their businesses, changing their lives. That is like so important to me. This business changes lives, and I know my story is a little bit different than most people with the amount of losses and things that we have been through. But Beachbody and building a business as a coach can change anybody's life if you are open to it, and if you want to make positive changes in your life. I am telling you, it has been a lifesaver for me. And my goal and my vision with it are really big, because I want to be my own boss, and I want to continue to change people's lives and help them change their lives, and help watch them influence their children and their friends and the people around them to lead healthier and happier lives. And so that is me. That's my story. That's how I became a coach, why I'm a coach. That's why I love coaching so much, and I'm so passionate about it. And that is who I am. And it has changed me, but I believe that I have taken, to the best of my ability, everything that's been thrown at us and turned it into the most positive that I can. Like I said, I still have a lot of bad days, and it's not all sunshine and roses, obviously, but this business has really helped me do that. So if you watch this video, especially till the end, I'm sorry. I know it was super long, but my story is just very long, and I just couldn't leave really any parts of it out. So if you watched it to the end, I thank you so very much. And if you are one of the people who support me and my journey, and even after hearing my whole story, I just want you to know how much that means to me and Dave to have your support. One thing I often think about when people don't understand, and I know guys, it's impossible for you to understand. It's impossible for me to understand, and I've been through it, but anyone who has not been through any sort of loss, it's literally, I know it's impossible for you to truly understand what it's like. But something that I sometimes think about is, and I urge you to do if you're struggling to understand what it's like, is close your eyes for a minute and think about your firstborn child. If you're a mom, I want you to think about that baby. I want you to think about the moment you found out you were pregnant with them, how you felt, what kind of thoughts you had about what your life would be like. And then I want you to think about the day you delivered them and laid eyes on your firstborn child, what that moment was like for you. And then think about the first time they smiled at you, their first tooth, the first time they crawled, took their first step, the first time they said mom, their first day of kindergarten. If you have older kids, think about their graduation, their wedding day, the day that they became parents and you became a grandparent. And now think about going back to that first pregnancy test, and think about what it would be like if that child, your firstborn child, was not in your life right now. How different your life would be. And it's hard. It's hard to think about that, I'm sure. But each one of my babies was my baby. From the moment I found out I was pregnant with them, I created a future in my mind of what life would be like. And my life right now with my 4 babies would be much different than it is right now. And that's not by choice. Not by choice of me. So if you struggle, just think about how different your life would be had your family not turned out the way that it did. And maybe that will help you, understand a little bit of what it might be like to not have that and to miss out on all of those things in life with your child. So this has already gotten too long. I want to thank you so much for joining me and having an open mind. And for all of my followers, thank you so much. You mean so much to me. I also want to say that I plan to share my IVF journey and PGD journey as I go. So I'm going to be doing, I'm thinking videos, so you can follow me on YouTube or on my website. I will probably be posting there about it as well. My website is www.elevate-yourself.com. And I want to document my journey because, like I said, my passion is not only health and fitness and helping people in that respect, but it's also helping people who've been through losses of any kind, because I've pretty much been through it all. And I want people to know they're not alone. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being there for me, for supporting me, and for not judging me. And I appreciate all of you so, so very much. Thanks, guys. Bye.